Williams here in SNY Studios here in New York. We're sending you down to Port St. Lucie, Florida. Mickey Callaway, Mets manager, making his first press conference from down there. We're going to send you down. Pitchers and catchers reported yesterday. Almost everyone is already down there working out. Plenty for Mickey Callaway to tell us all about it. So let's send it down to Port St. Lucie, Florida, the Mets complex down there. Here is the Mets manager, Mickey Callaway, speaking to the media.
SNY. Mickey, I know you've talked a lot about some of your ideas that you have and changes that you're going to make here, both on the field and off the field for these players. When it's a new situation like this and you have a lot of ideas like that, how do you go about implementing with all the guys? Is it a lot of group discussions or more on an individual basis?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's easier because we're new. We're a new staff. We have new ideas. We're different people than maybe they're used to dealing with. So that in itself makes it a lot easier. We've brought guys in individually. We brought little groups of guys that have the same things going on, and the key is to just communicate with guys every single day and have expectations that they are aware of. And if we can do that and continue that communication and continue to express what the expectations are of each and every one of them on a daily basis, then we can implement anything we want. Now we have to have done our homework on it. We have to have done all the research because they're going to ask questions, and we expect questions. We have a bunch of smart players out there, and baseball players are more educated on what's going on with the game because of their access to information, whether it's on their phone, on the computer, or whatever. So we are going to be prepared to go have tough conversations with guys every day. And we want to be challenged on what we're saying to them. And if it makes sense and we've done our homework the right way, then guys are going to do what is expected of them. And that's our main goal.
Rich Catino, ESPN Radio.
Rich.
You've talked a lot about your bullpen, how maybe there's not going to be rolled. It's kind of going to be a day-to-day thing on how you decide that. How difficult is that to do from a manager's standpoint, and how do you plan on employing it with the bullpen you have now?
So it is difficult. There is value in having guys do certain things. There's more value in having players that want to go out there and win every single night, no matter what inning they pitch. I've talked to all those guys, and every one of them to a man has said, we do not care when we pitch, we just want to win a game. And I expressed to them, I want what's best for that pitcher and what's best for our team to win a game that night. And they're totally fine with it. And it's really a great situation that we have here with the personnel we have, because that's not always the case. And there's no egos in there. They just want to win ball games.
Mickey, Ken Davidoff, New York Post. Your starting rotation is 5 power arms, but also 5 guys who have dealt with injuries the last year plus. Wondering, do you want to see more pitching to contact and maybe preservation of that effort, or do you feel like these guys, these are who they are and they're meant to miss bats?
Well, let me say this. I've got to sit there and watch some bullpens in the last week, and I've never seen anything like it. The amount of very good arms with quality stuff that we have here in this Mets organization, I promise you nobody else has that. I've been around some pretty good arms, and this is the best group of arms and stuff I've ever seen from top to bottom. It's really amazing. Dave Island and I come in at the end of the day and we're like, this is unbelievable. We believe in attacking hitters. If you can be efficient, you can pitch longer. Dave Island is going to prepare these guys to be the best possible version of themselves that he possibly can. And that's going to include the way they attack, the way they control the running game, the way they attack the third time through. He is going to educate these guys and make them better pitchers. That's what Dave Allen does. He's one of the best and has won 2 world championships for a reason. And he's going to have them prepared better than anybody's ever prepared them in their life.
Mike Puma, New York Post. Mickey,
Mike?
do you have to sell these guys on the idea that you can contend this year, or do you think most of them have a idea coming in that last year was maybe an aberration and that you can pick up, where the team was in 2015, 2016?
No, they look to their left and they look to their right and they know they can contend. We have the players to do it. It's become very evident in my short time here in Port St. Lucie. I've been here for about 2 weeks, maybe just a little over. I have now spent some time with our coaching staff. I've spent time with our players. It is very evident that we are prepared in every way to go out there and do something special. If we do not do things, it's going to be on me. The front office has gotten us the players. The coaching staff is the best coaching staff in the big leagues. I mean, you sit there and you talk to all these guys. They're going to hold guys accountable for what they do. We're going to implement routines and structure. And if every player that I've talked to has come in and all they do is want to win, and they want to go out there and do whatever it takes. And when you get a group like that, you can do something special. And if we don't do something special with the things we have in place, it's going to be on the leadership of that. And that's going to be on me. And I'm going to work tirelessly every day for each and every one of them to be the best I can be and help them be the best they can be.
Hey, Mickey. Ted Berg, USA Today. There was some talk in the offseason about the ways you guys might try to manage some of the starting pitchers' innings during the regular season, whether it was limiting them to 2 times through the order or going to a 6-man rotation. Have you given any more thought to that idea? And if so, have you started to communicate to that to guys in any way?
We've given that a lot of thought, and we have communicated what we think to the pitchers. The thing we've communicated the most is Dave and I have sat down, and Dave is going to prepare these guys, like I was saying earlier. You have to prepare guys to be better than they have been in the past, and that's our goal. Now, are we going to use information? Are we going to use the feedback from the players? And am I going to use the feedback from Dave when we're making an in-game decision? Absolutely. So there's 50 reasons why we're going to leave a guy in or take him out the 3rd time through. But the main goal is to prepare them to try and get through the lineup the 3rd time. I think that when you take that approach, I want our guys going into the game knowing that they just got to go attack hitters and that we're going to take care of them the right way. I've talked to them. I said, hey, when I take you out, you're not going to be happy about it. I don't expect you to be happy about it. But there's going to be reasons behind it. I'm going to tell you those reasons. And if you want to hear more, you come and see me. And that's just how it has to be. We're going to communicate with these guys. We're going to communicate what's expected of them. We're going to prepare them to go out there and be the best they can be that day, and then we're going to move forward.
Anthony DeComo, MLB.com. What is your philosophy on what makes a good leadoff hitter? And particularly without Michael Conforto, at least it looks like for the beginning of the season, who do you see kind of stepping into that role?
That's probably one of the biggest questions I have going into camp. I'm not quite sure who's going to be leading off. I think that we need to spend a lot of time with these guys to evaluate them the right way. I think it's going to depend on, the qualities we're looking for is going to depend on who's hitting 2nd, who's hitting 3rd. Is there a position player hitting 9th, or is the pitcher hitting 8th? I think these are all decisions that we have already been bouncing around the coach's room that are going to become more and more clear as the spring goes on. The funny thing is, it's hard to make decisions off of a 30-game look. So we're going to use feedback from guys that have been around these guys in the past as well when we're making those decisions going in. So, it's something that I've been thinking really hard about, and it's probably the most perplexing thing I've thought about so far. So great question. We're not quite sure at this moment.
Mickey, as you noted, I mean, we've seen what these arms can do when they're healthy. I know you have ideas about how to keep them healthy. Are there any specific things aside from limiting, how many times they go through an order, though, just in spring training specifically, or even this past offseason that you've been having them do that you think can help with that?
Absolutely. I think that Dave did a great job of his communication in the offseason, and that's where it started. It started right when we all got hired. We sent out throwing programs. The feedback on some of those throwing programs from guys has been wonderful. I think we're seeing dividends in these early pins. Everybody looks tremendous. I mean, we're having to hold guys back. They came in, they're ready to throw 45 pitches, and Dave, the first day, was like, hey, we're gonna pull back on the reins a little bit. Everybody's gonna be limited to 25 pitches today just to make sure that we keep them healthy. I think, so that was kind of the off-season, part of trying to get guys to come in where they need to be. We are going to have routines set out for every individual on this team, not just the position players, not just the pitchers. Everybody's going to come in, and they're going to know what's expected of them that day. And processes and routines are what's going to truly keep these guys healthy moving forward. We've done the easy part. They're coming to camp healthy. The hard part is to keep them healthy throughout a full season. And not everybody's going to stay healthy. That's how things go. I mean, there's not one team in Major League Baseball that's going to run 5 starters out there and they're going to pitch every game. I think the Dodgers did that at one point in time 20 years ago, I don't know. That's impossible, and we don't expect that. But what we do expect is for them to have processes and routines that are going to give them the best chance to throw as many innings as possible, and that's what we're going to hold them accountable for.
Hey, Mickey, Matty Hultberg record. Just with the rotation, how many of those guys, you have about 8 starters, it looks like. I mean, how many right now would you consider at the moment, would you say you feel are locks for that rotation? And do you look at, I mean, are there a few spots open? Is there one spot? I mean, how would you gauge it kind of here in the beginning of camp?
I don't think we've seen them enough to really, for me to answer that question at this moment. I think that guys know there's a battle coming, and we have a lot of depth. I think all 8 of our starters, or maybe even more than that, can contribute in the big leagues, and that's what we're looking at right now. I think we'll have a better sense of that, obviously, moving forward, and obviously we're going to have to make some kind of decision at some point. The good part is, from what I've seen so far, there's 8 to 10 guys that are making that decision already hard on us, and Dave and I are talking, and we're like, wow, this is a great group of arms that we're seeing. And that is a good problem for us to have, is to have to make some really difficult decision when that decision time comes.
Abby Mastracco, NJ.com, and the Star Ledger. Going back to the bullpen a little bit, where does the sort of philosophy of having a flexible bullpen or closer by committee, where did that come from? What initially gave you the impression that you could have success with it?
Well, obviously Terry Francona does it in Cleveland, and it worked very well. I think Cleveland was a spot or a place that had the same type guys we do, pitchers that have no egos and just want to win games. When you can use players' strengths to the max, you're going to win more games, and I think that's why it makes sense to me. I kind of compare it to when I'm going to be thinking about when to use Wilmer Flores and what days he's going to be playing. I'm not going to go, well, you know what, I think I'm going to play Wilmer Flores on Tuesday and Friday and Saturday, because I don't know who's pitching on those days. I'm going to use Wilmer Flores when he gives us the best at-bat possible against the pitcher that's pitching that day. So I don't know who's going to come up in the 9th inning. So for me to designate somebody to pitch the 9th, and I don't know what hitters are coming up, seems kind of silly to me. Now, it's going to be a very tough situation. It's going to make it harder on us to make those decisions on when to throw who when. We're going to have 4 or 5 deep that we can count on every single night. Those pitchers are going to know that. That's one of the really good things is no matter when guys are pitching, they know we have confidence on them to get outs in the 6th, the 9th, wherever we're going to throw them. So there's that advantage. It is going to be harder to make decisions because if I could just sit back and go, okay, well, it's the 7th, and okay, I don't even have to tell Dave who's going to go in because it's predetermined. So we're going to have to be more prepared. We're going to have to do our homework on every possible bit of information and what we think and talk to players more to be able to get the best out of them. But in the end, we're going to pitch guys and they're going to face guys who they should be facing. And if we can do that, we're going to look up at the end of the year and everybody on our pitching staff is going to have had a solid season because they've faced who they are supposed to face. And if we can accomplish that, then we're going to have a successful season.
Mike Puma again. Mickey, could you see yourself carrying 2 first basemen, or is it as simple as if Adrian Gonzalez is healthy, he's probably your guy to start the season?
That's a good question. That's something that is going to be a tough decision. Dom Smith has come into camp looking really good. He's in great shape. He did a great job this offseason of preparing. I had a talk with him, and the expectation for Dom is to go out there and do everything he can to be on the major league team. Adrian Gonzalez is going to be one of the most prepared guys you've ever seen and has already expressed his willingness to mentor Dom Smith. So I expect we're going to have 2 first basemen that are going to have good camps. And that is going to be a tough decision in the end. We're going to have to see how our roster shakes out, who's healthy exiting spring training before I can really answer your question more thoroughly. But we're going to have 2 guys out there at first base really competing to do the best they can to show us what they can do, that's for sure.
Mickey, Ed Coleman, WFAN Radio. Bullpen, 8-man bullpen, 7-man bullpen. Have you settled on that, or is that going to depend on schedule and starter usage?
Yeah.
And how does the National League, as opposed to the American, factor into that?
Yeah, so that is definitely going to be based on our schedule and things like that. To open the season, you might not have to have an 8-man pen because days off or whatever. And just the fact that all of our pitchers are going to have been rested going into game 1 of the season because, that's just how the schedule works out. So we're not going to be opposed to having an 8-man pen. You're probably going to see it at some point. I'm not sure that, National League, American League is going to come into the thinking too much. And probably because we're going to have position players that can do multiple things and play multiple positions. And we have switch hitters on the bench. And, we're going to have very flexible position players. So I'm not as worried about, we're going to need that extra position player to pinch hit and do the things we want to do. I'm more worried about our pitching and taking care of everybody that needs to be taken care of. So if we need to carry that 8th pitcher, we will definitely do it. Coming out of camp, we're just going to have to see where we're at with our position players, with our pitchers, and what makes sense with the schedule.
Hey, Mickey, Laura Albanese from Newsday. Just a lot of the pitchers that we've been talking to have said they've gotten a lot of feedback from you. Do you intend to continue that sort of hands-on approach, almost like being a second pitching coach is what Gazelman said about you?
Dave and I have talked extensively about this, and we've had conversations daily about it. And we are both aware that players are going to come to me. I have a passion for pitching. He's the pitching coach. If a player comes to me, Dave's going to know what the discussion was. And Dave was my mentor. I learned from Dave. So he's going to have everything to do with our pitching success. I'm there to help Dave if he needs help. I'm there for every position player and every pitcher on the team. You know, I think my pitching background is going to help the hitters just as much as the pitchers. I relentlessly studied what pitchers can do, what hitters can and can't do based on who the pitcher is. So giving feedback on some of the great hitters that I've had to prepare advance reports for to some of our hitters, I think will be invaluable. You know, I had to prepare game plans to try to get Miguel Cabrera out. And I think one year he had 800 off of us in 19 games. So I didn't do a very good job that year. But just studying what those hitters can and can't do, I'm going to be able to provide feedback to pitchers, to position players. And, you know, that's going to be the fun part for me. But Dave Island's the pitching coach. And he's going to be empowered at all times to do his job.
Mickey, James Wagner, New York Times. I think you kind of touched on this already, but if you could explain like where you and Dave go back. I think you guys were teammates at one point, and then just in the process of hiring a pitching coach, you know, was it your list, their list? You guys, you know, collaborated on one, and then why settle on Dave in that sense?
Yeah, so Dave and I go back to 1998. I had gotten drafted in 96 by the Rays, and Dave was a guy that had been in the big leagues, and he was in AAA with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays at the time. And I got called up at the end of the season. I think I made about 6 starts in 98 for the AAA team. And Dave took me under his wing. And instantly I saw the value in Dave Island and who he was as a person. He held, you know, I don't know what I was, 23 maybe at the time. And it was evident right away that he was going to hold me accountable for the things I do. He took me under his wing and he said, you do things like this. You talk to the media like this. And he just helped me along the way. So I've had a respect for Dave Island from day one. You know, I've got to see him coaching against him over the years, and we never went a day, you know, where we didn't say hi or went and shook hands when we were playing one another. And I respect him probably more than anybody in the game. He knows how to pitch. I don't know if any of you guys ever saw him pitch, but he threw mid to high 80s, and he could go out there and get some outs. And I respected that about him. And he was fearless. He was a bulldog. He knew how to prepare, and all of those things were very valuable to me in my career. So learning from Dave Island was huge and had a big impact on me. And not just because of the content, but who he was and how he delivered that message. So when I heard that Dave Island was available, he was definitely a guy that I wanted. I think as far as what we were looking for in pitching coaches, Sandy, John, Jeff, we all sat down, JP, we all sat down and came up with a list of qualities that we wanted in our staff. And what did we want for this team? And what was going to be the most impactful to help this team be the best version of themselves? And we wrote down all those qualities, and right away we knew that Dave Island checked those boxes. I knew Dave Island checked those boxes. And when Dave came in for his interview, right when he left, every one of those guys in that interview room knew he checked all those boxes. So it was a perfect fit.
Hey, Mickey, Mike Fitzpatrick from the Associated Press.
Mike?
Tomorrow you start what I think is your first managing job at any level, if I'm not mistaken. What is that feeling like for you? What is the message you want to send to your not your entire team, but the pitchers and catchers their first formal workout on the first day. And what's the biggest challenge that presents as somebody who hasn't managed before, taking over a major league team that expects to contend?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be unforeseen things that I've never dealt with before along the way, and that's why we hired the coaching staff that we hired. They're going to have me prepared. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to lean on them on a daily basis. You know, I told Gary and Glenn, I said, you guys are going to have to be on either side of me going, hey, dummy, it's first and third. What play do you want to put on? You know, it's like, because I'm going to be looking at the game and going, oh, he just threw him a slider. He should probably throw a fastball up and in, you know. So I just have always looked at the game a little different. So having a support staff that is on point, prepared, and know what they're doing is going to be huge for me. And every one of those guys in there could be a major league manager today. So, you know, I'm very fortunate to have those guys around me to help me with those unforeseen things that are going to pop up. I'm anxious. I'm ready. I'm prepared. I have to, you know, make a small talk to the pitchers tomorrow. And what we're going to do tomorrow is tomorrow's meeting with the pitchers is going to be about their routine. And it's going to take place in the weight room. And I'm not sure that anybody's have their first meeting with people in a weight room, but that's how valuable I think their routines are going to be. And we're going to walk them through what we expect them to do when they arrive at the ballpark. And that's the first thing they're going to hear. And I think that's very important. Now, I've already got to see all the guys and talk to them at length about a ton of things. So we've gotten all that out of the way. But we are going to have these guys prepared to go out there every day. So, you know, I'm excited about that. And, you know, just holding guys accountable and going through the process and communicating with these guys every day is the thing I'm looking forward to the most, you know, being a manager.
Christy Eckert, Daily News. Just you've seen these pictures now up close for a week or so. Could you give us some impressions of the pitchers that perhaps are questionable this year, like Matt Harvey, how he did last year, Wheeler, Matz, what so far you have seen from them?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I've never seen this, you know, collective group of arms in my life. I think that obviously there's reasons why everybody thinks this team's going to be very good every year coming into spring training because of their arms that they have. They all look really good in their pins. They're throwing the ball where they want to. If anything, we're having to pull them back a tad and say, hey, don't overdo it. We know you feel great. There's smiles on everyone's faces because they're coming in healthy. And what I've seen so far is kind of blown me away. And I'm excited to get to see these guys face hitters. And they're going to be facing hitters very early in camp because everything starts early. And Dave's lined it up where they're going to be facing some minor league hitters in the first couple of days of pitchers and catchers camp. And I can't wait to see some reactions and some swings off of some of this nasty stuff I'm seeing.
Rich Catino again. You know, home runs have become such a big part of baseball in the last few years. A lot of talk in this offseason about the curveball and what the curveball could potentially do to combat that. We saw in Game 7 of the LCS what it did. With your pitchers you have here, do their repertoire fit into that? Uses of the curveball to consistently change the eye level of hitters?
Yeah, I think, and it's not just a curveball; it's a breaking ball of some sort. Our guys have them, and they're going to use them because it makes sense. You know, if you look at the numbers and you're doing advanced reports on other teams' hitters, major league hitters are in the big leagues because they have bat speed and they can hit the fastball. They don't hit the breaking ball quite as well. So you're going to see breaking balls out of these guys. You know, I think that it just makes more sense when you look at the numbers and this guy doesn't hit a breaking ball as good as a fastball. Why wouldn't you throw him a breaking ball? So I think we're going to take that approach. We're going to talk to the pitchers about that. We've already been talking to some of them about it. We have some guys with some really good breaking balls that may not have used them as much as they probably should have, in our opinion. And we're going to be a proponent of that. There's a lot of, evidence out there now that, especially with how hard these guys throw, that the breaking ball might not be as bad for the arm as we initially thought. So, having that evidence just further supports what we are going to be expressing to these guys. Now, they have to be able to command their fastball. They have to be able to throw a fastball down and away when they want to. They have to have the ability to throw a ball in off the plate to set up these breaking balls. But a breaking ball is a very good pitch to have success with, and I would probably venture to say you're going to see an uptick in what our breaking ball usage has been in the past.
There's been a lot of talk about platooning the catchers, and they seem very comfortable with that. Are you comfortable with that, or would you like to see a competition there and established catcher?
There's always going to be a competition. I think that no matter what you tell a major league player going into it, whether he's, when you tell them they're getting sent down to AAA, they're still competing to come up and take somebody's job in the big leagues because they're competitive people. So there's always going to be a competition. I think that what we are going to do with the catching is going to be very important. And I know how stressful it is to be a catcher. I sat next to catchers for the last 5 years and constantly talked to them about what they had to do on a daily basis, and it is a lot. So I think going into the season, what we have to do is make sure that our catchers are as mentally prepared and as physically prepared to go and catch whatever day they have to catch. And that's how we're going to approach it. Now, the good part about our catchers is they both can hit, and they both cover different parts of the plate, which is very good, especially if you don't have a left-handed catcher, left-handed hitting catcher, and a right-handed hitting catcher. So we have two righties that cover different parts of the plate. That's going to allow us to use their strengths against whoever's pitching that day. So two very good catchers that can get the job done. Our pitchers both trust both catchers. Our pitchers have to do a better job of controlling the running game for those catchers to be a little more comfortable back there, and that's going to be one of the things that we emphasize in camp, because they have it hard enough, having to remember all the signs, do their prep work on the advanced information so they can call a good game, maintain their hitting, maintain their catching and throwing, their ability to receive and frame pitches, converse with the umpire and get him on our side. I mean, they have so many responsibilities, it's crazy. So having them prepared mentally and physically on the day they play is going to be very important to us, and that's the approach we're going to take.
Just Mickey, with regards to David Wright, obviously he's rehabbing, he's trying to return. I guess how are you what's kind of the plan you're gonna have with him kind of going forward, and how are you gonna work with him? As obviously he's the team captain, new guy you're gonna be working with. How do you kind of work with that as the first-time manager and such?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously I'm gonna have a good relationship, or try to have the best relationship I possibly can with everybody on the team, whether it's our seventh outfielder on the depth chart or David Wright. I'm going to communicate with him. So I'm definitely going to communicate with David. I'm going to lean on him at times to help us with what we're trying to accomplish as a culture. As far as his work goes, he's still in the rehab process. And, that is something that takes place with the trainers and guys like that. So we're going to let him do his best job to get ready for the season and go from there.
Very optimistic and informative about 36 minutes from Mickey Callaway right there in his first presser from down in Port St. Lucie. And a couple things that stood out quickly before we get you back to your Tuesday. Talked a lot about the bullpen usage, was asked about that multiple times, said it is going to be difficult. He's talked about all of these guys not having really a defined role and using them in whatever matchup and inning tends to work on that given day. But he says the guys are totally fine with it. He's talked to everybody in that bullpen right now. Really raved about the pitching staff. As I said, it was a very optimistic 36 minutes, but he said nobody else has the stuff and this group of arms in Major League Baseball that the Mets have on this roster. Is unlike anything he's ever seen. And then he really talked about accountability, which was interesting to hear a manager say, if we don't do something, it's on me. Said that the Mets really have the best coaching staff in the majors. The front office has supplied them with everything that they need, and it's really on him if it doesn't work out. A very interesting and unique thing to hear out of a manager in his first press conference at spring training. And then he said the most perplexing thing so far in the spring, maybe the one decision he's looking forward to making finally most, is the leadoff hitter in this lineup. Again, we've talked about it. There are guys with speed but may not match up in that leadoff hitting role. So we'll see how that winds up for the rest of spring training. But we have a lot more coverage coming up here on SNY. Our coverage begins at 5 p.m. on the television side of things with Daily News Live, Loud Mouse, and Baseball Night in New York coming up after that. And Steve Gelbs will wrap everything up with a package for tonight's show, Geico Sports Night at 10:30. But that does it for our special coverage. Once again, here in New York, I'm Doug Williams. Thanks for watching on our social media platforms here on SNY. Have a good rest of your day.